The Johnstown Incline, a video history. The history of the Johnstown Incline Plain cannot be told without reference to the Great Johnstown Flood. It was built as an escape route from the city of Johnstown during the Great Flood. The story begins in the early days of Pennsylvania, when the state was divided in two by the formidable Allegheny Mountains just to the east of Johnstown. Because of those mountains, the journey from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh took an average of 23 days. To cross those mountains, the Allegheny Portage Railway was built. It was an engineering marvel that carried canal boats over the tops of the tall mountains on a series of 10 inclined planes. They passed through America's first railway tunnel, 4 miles east of Johnstown, and returned to the water near Johnstown to continue the journey. When the Portage Railway and inclines were completed, the journey to Pittsburgh was cut from 23 days to 4 days. In order to have enough water for the canal, both a dam and a lake were created in the hills above town. When the Portage Railway closed years later, a group of wealthy Pittsburgh businessmen, including Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick, bought the lake for recreational purposes. It washed far up the tall hillside where the Johnstown Incline Plain would one day be built. The 40-foot-high wave of water then washed 3 miles back up the Stony Creek River before returning back to the city. The giant floating wave of debris then created a new dam against the stone archways of the Pennsylvania Railroad. This was where the modern invention of kerosene lanterns caused the great mass of houses, livestock, and people to catch on fire. 2,209 people died. This was the worst loss of life in a national disaster in America until September 11, 2001. As the enormous task of rebuilding the city got underway, citizens of Johnstown began to think of a permanent escape route from the low-lying areas. Survivors also wanted to find a safe place to rebuild that was at a higher elevation, away from the frequent flooding that took place in the old city center. On the top of Yoder Hill, high above the city, was flat farmland close to town, but it could only be reached on a steep, winding mountain road. An inclined plane, also known as a funicular railway, was proposed as a way to connect this new neighborhood to Johnstown. The inclined plane was designed by Samuel Deisher. Because of the bad roads leading to the new hilltop community, Deisher designed a vehicular incline. The top floor was for wagons and horses. The bottom floor had a cabin large enough for 12 people. The incline was built with 2 tracks and 2 cars, permanently attached to steel cables and counterbalanced with each other. Because of this design, the only power needed was to lift what was in the cars. A stationary steam engine at the summit provided power. The engine turned a 3-ton gear wheel and drum, which could turn in both directions so that one car could be raised while the other one is lowered. Riders took the incline to work in the shops and steel factories of Johnstown and returned home to their mountaintop village at the end of the day. The incline proved its worth when the Stony Creek and Little Conemaugh rivers flooded to a level of 18 feet in downtown Johnstown in 1936.
Rumors fly that the huge dam is going out. The word comes, tens of thousands are fleeing in terror. They have horrible memories of the last great catastrophe. Their only refuge is the hills. And a few hours later, they trickle back to the lowlands, reassured that temporarily at least, the huge dam will hold in check the billions of gallons of water. The floodwaters are slowly subsiding, but the swollen, angry rivers give a vivid picture of the terrific force that swept everything before it in the Holocaust.
Nearly 4,000 people were taken up to safety during this flood, while boats and rescue crews descended in cars coming down. Ridership remained high during the lean years of the Great Depression, when other transportation was difficult to afford. Thousands commuted to the busy steel mills through the era of World War II. During the war, photography was prohibited from the incline because it offered a clear view of the many steel mills in the valley below. Families began to invest in automobiles, and buses no longer needed to be ferried up the incline. The number of riders began to decline. Problems with the maintenance of the inclined plane and other disruptions caused people to find alternate transport down to the city, and the inclined plane found fewer and fewer riders. Competition from new roads and modern vehicles caused the incline to lose most of its riders in commercial traffic. Even though it served as an escape and rescue route, during the flood of 1977, the decline continued. The Cambria County Transit Authority purchased the incline for $1 in 1983 and began seeking funds to restore it. New rails, girders, cable pulleys, and railroad ties were used in the restoration project. In late summer 1984, the inclined plane was reopened. At a grade of 72%, the Johnstown Incline is the steepest vehicular inclined plane in the world. It is powered by a 400 horsepower General Electric motor. Ridership in 2005-2006 was 109,000 people, far below the record ridership of 1,356,293 riders who rode the incline in 1919.
I mean, the water didn't come up, but the wave broke against here. Did it come up the hillside quite a ways?
I really don't know. All I know is my grandfather was a young man in Prospect. We're all in went up that, around that Prospect, and he was a young man, and he stood and watched the flood, and his sister worked as a domestic downtown, and he stood there and watched it. Yeah, and she's in the grave of the unknown up there in the cemetery.
And she died in the
Oh
flood.
my, yes, never found her. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Thank you for joining us in this video history of the Johnstown Inclined Plane. We hope you will soon visit the incline and enjoy it for yourselves.